All right, let's go ahead and get into the next one real quick.
The war began. Secretary Rubio.
Gentleman yields. Mr. Castro.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you all for your testimony today. I want to start with a question about Iran and discuss first how the war began. Secretary Rubio told us that Israel was going to strike Iran regardless, and that doing so would have triggered Iranian retaliation against U.S. forces already in the region. And Director Ratliff, you seem to affirm that in comments just a few moments ago. So rather than tell Israel to stand down, the president joined the war. The Congress and the American people still don't know what the president's actual goals are. And yet, we have lost 13 U.S. service members. But here's what we do know. The president has said that he wants a deal. He said Iran wants to make a deal and that he's not ready because, quote, the terms aren't good enough yet. Yet, they just killed Ali Larijani, the de facto leader of Iran, who, while not a friend of the United States, would have been the person to negotiate any agreement with. The president explicitly said that the United States did not strike Iran's energy infrastructure because, in his words, having to rebuild it, quote, would take years.
Yep.
Yet this morning, Israel struck the South Pars gas field, the world's largest natural gas reserve, triggering Iranian attacks on Qatari gas facilities.
Yep. And that's, like I said, was an escalation. Like, they started attacking oil infrastructure in Iran, so Iran started attacking oil infrastructure in the Middle East countries. And this is the problem. And this is what nobody's really understanding. Like, you know, Iran is basically holding the entire Middle East region, the Gulf states, hostage. So if you destroy their oil fields or you destroy their electric grid or their oil infrastructure, they'll destroy Qatar's, they'll destroy Saudi Arabia's, and they'll destroy UAE's. And they'll go down the list. And they can do it because they're right in that area. Their ballistic missile range can reach those countries, and drones. They could just send the drones at low cost, and the drones are hitting. They don't even got to send a missile. They can just send drones at these places and hit their targets. And that's one of the craziest problems, because the drones, they're not even fast. They're slow moving. They come out in swarms, but for some reason we can't take them all down, and some of them are going to hit anyway. This is the problem right now. Like, we do understand that Iran can't beat us militarily wise, but this is asymmetric. This is about causing as much damage to the global economy as possible to make us back off.
Oil prices are up 15% in the last 24 hours. In San Antonio, my hometown, where I represent, the cost of gas has gone up nearly 40% in 3 weeks. Last night, the president said that the United States knew nothing about the attack and called on Israel to stop similar attacks on energy. Israel denies this and says that the attack was cleared by the United States. So my question is, what does the intelligence community assess Israel's goals in this war to be? And are those goals aligned with the goals of the United States?
I'm thinking carefully here about what can be said in this open setting versus a closed setting.
Are the goals aligned?
The objectives that have been laid out by the president are different from the objectives that have been laid out by the Israeli government.
And how do they differ?
We can see through the operations that the Israeli government has been focused on disabling the Iranian leadership and taking out several members, obviously beginning with the Ayatollah, the supreme leader. And they continue to focus on that effort.
And how does that differ from our goals?
The president has stated that his objectives are to destroy Iran's ballistic missile launching capability, their ballistic missile production capability, and their Navy, the IRGC Navy and mine laying capability.
So the death and destruction continues. The economic cost to the United States, to Israel, to the Gulf states, and to the world continues to increase. So I want to ask you, to the best of your knowledge, do you know whether Israel is supportive of the president's call to make a deal with Iran?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know Israel's position on that.
And to what do you attribute Israel's decision to strike Iranian energy infrastructure, despite President Trump's call to keep those facilities off limits?
I don't have an answer for that.
Uh-huh.
So they ignored the president. Do you agree with that?
I'm not privy to any of their deliberations or what went into their calculus in launching this or other attacks. We are not involved with in the operational element of this. We're providing continuously on a daily basis the intelligence assessments of the events that are occurring. And
I guess I know the
effects of them.
FBI can't because they're domestic, but can anybody else at the table provide any insight into that?
Bro, not all y'all silent, bro.
I guess I'm not sure what the question you're asking,
Okay.
Congressman
Well-
Castro. I guess a couple of things. The goals that the president set out are clearly defined. The DNI related those. What was not included is a goal of the U.S.
Well, Director, let me start with this. Let me start with this question. You asked what my question is.
Which
Let me reclaim my time, Director. Come on. Do you know why Israel decided to strike that infrastructure
I wouldn't-
despite the fact that the president
Thank you.
said it should be off limits?
Thank you. Yeah. Why did Israel decide to do that? Because we can't control them. Like I said, we're dealing with a government that's broken multiple ceasefires. And ceasefires that we put them under and they continuously break. Bro, they broke a ceasefire with what was it? Hezbollah. They broke a ceasefire with Gaza or with Hamas. I mean, bro, they just don't care. I mean, they broke the ceasefire twice with Hezbollah and twice with Gaza. And you think that Donald Trump is going to be able to tell these guys who don't even follow a ceasefire to tell them to stop? They don't care. They don't care. They want regime change. They want to put whatever pressure on the Iranian people to get it done. We're not. We got two separate missions. This is what makes it so dangerous. Our partner in this war is somebody that we do not share goals with. We don't. And here's the thing. I don't even know if we got our goals all the way aligned. They do, though. I'll give them that. They want regime change. They want their ballistic missiles taken out. They just want them to be a defenseless country. And that's what Israel wants. I thought we just wanted to handle their nuclear capabilities, but for some reason, it seems like Israel's goals are becoming our goals. And I see where we're trying to diverge a little bit, because what Israel's doing is wild, attacking their oil fields. Yeah, of course that's gonna make them attack other oil fields. It's gonna drive up prices for us and cause more. I'll be real with you, instability in the region. So I get what Donald Trump was doing when he said, "Hey, yo, no, you can't be doing this. It's the last time you'll do it." But I mean, bro, they've broken every ceasefire in history that they've been under. So I'm sorry. I just don't think that Donald Trump could stop these guys. He had his chance and he missed it.
I wouldn't speak for Israel.
What do you guys know? We're at war. What do you guys know?
We'll have to take that for the record.
Yes, let's take it for the record.
All right, let's go ahead and go over to the next video here. Right in between, here it is. Back. Whoop, my bad, guys. Wrong video. I forgot to start the video.
The needs of the earth.
There we go. There we go.
Ms. Houlihan.
Thank you. My question is basically starting with some HR questions, and they're first for Director Patel. If you could help me a little bit understand, I come out of the military family as well, but I don't know very much about the FBI's HR process or the growing up of an FBI expert. Could you help me understand how long it takes for a senior counterintelligence expert, especially one maybe focused on a very narrow threat, to be developed? How many years, I guess, would be my question.
Thank you, Congresswoman. That varies. Sometimes right out of Quantico, new agent trainees are placed on the counterintelligence mission set, and some people come in from the fraud section. So the answer varies. It could take a couple months to a couple of years.
And the next question is, when a person comes up in your system in the military, it was always the needs of the Navy or the needs of the Air Force. It was never the needs of the airman or the soldier or the sailor, in terms of prioritizing our readiness, in terms of making sure that we met the mission. Is the FBI similar?
It is similar, ma'am. It's a dynamic threat landscape, so we flux and surge based on the CI/CT cyber threats and other threats to the homeland and violent crime mission.
Oh God, do me a favor, make sure to like the video, guys. Let's go ahead and beat that shadow ban by liking the video, and we'll be out of it in about a week.
Seen a surge as well.
So my specific question is that there was a report that came out in February from CNN that the FBI had let go or fired dozens of agents and staff members from a counterintelligence unit tasked with monitoring Iran. And apparently the reason, at least reported in the press, was that these individuals had been involved in the investigation of classified document handling from President Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and that this was the reason why they were summarily let go. First of all, are you aware of those firings, and do you concur with the rationale or reason for those firings?
I'm aware of that, and I know there's a pendency of litigation, so I'm not able to comment on them.
Did you yourself order those firings?
The FBI, every time there is someone who violates our code of conduct or ethical standard, conducts an internal investigation with the careers there, and they present a decision point to me. The Iranian Threat Mission Center has seen an increase of 43% in arrests for Iranian spy actors. So the Iranian Threat Mission Center has never been stronger.
So I'm not asking about.
Yes. Okay. She's not really asking about, well, all right, we're asking about the people who were in that counterterrorism that you fired that most likely were experts on Iran. And it kind of sounds like you just kept the guys in there who were pretty much all about the Iran war, that they're not going to question you. But it sounds like you fired anybody who was saying, hey, look, bro, we've been studying Iran for years and there's no threat. So like, what's going on here? And anybody who goes against that seems to be getting the boot. So, like I said, it does seem like if you don't get down with this war, you're going to get fired. And that's just a sad reality of what's going on right now in this administration.
Seen an increase of 43% in arrests for Iranian spy actors. So the Iranian Threat Mission Center has never been stronger.
So I'm not asking about. I'm asking about whether those people were fired because they were involved in the investigation of the document handling by President Trump, not for any behavior issues. Is that your understanding as well?
Again, ma'am, I can't comment on them because those are in pending litigation.
I guess I'm a little stymied here, Director, because it feels as though literally when there was a possible pending war, I'm outside of this intelligence circle in many ways, even though I serve on the Intelligence Committee. You collectively must have been aware when these firings happened that there was a meaningful chance that the U.S. might be engaged with a war in Iran. And having these very expert, super qualified folks summarily dismissed at this time, it just feels like an odd choice in timing. Were you aware at the time that this was going down, that this may end up weakening the mission and the readiness of that group?
The mission, as I stated, has never been stronger when you see a 43% increase in counterintelligence arrests. And
yeah, but some people would hit you back with, yeah, but we had like 3 terrorist attacks that maybe you didn't fire those counter-terrorist guys. We might have been able to catch those guys because, yeah, sure, we arrested some people, but let's not get it twisted. 3 so-called terrorist attacks still popped off in the United States. And I mean, one of them was because of what was going on, the reckless bombing and killing of civilians in Lebanon. I mean, another one, I believe, for Lebanon. And then the other one, I believe, was because of Iran. So we got terrorist attacks happening in the United States over what Israel is doing in Lebanon. And we've had terrorist attacks happening in the United States over what Israel was doing in Gaza. But you know what? We'll get into that later. 9/11. Sorry.
21% increase in cyber arrests against the Iranian Threat Mission Center. My focus is on providing the American people as strong as the FBI as possible. I don't work on timelines. I work on evidence that's presented to me.
I guess my concern is that it feels as though, and I very much honor the tone and tenor of this hearing, that this is about making sure that that we depoliticize what is the most important thing that we all do, which is keep us safe. And it feels as though this issue is a political issue. And I just am worried that we are taking really good, really qualified people and picking fights with one another across party lines, rather than making sure that we protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe. With the remainder of my time, Director Gabbard, I have a question regarding the fact that the Secretary of the Treasury loosened restrictions this week on Russian oil exports, and now the Russians are able to sell oil again. Did the IC assess that clearing the way for increased Russian oil sales would benefit Moscow, possibly?
Yeah.
I don't believe there's been a formal IC assessment on this topic yet, as it.
Yeah, of course there hasn't, because it just happened maybe a week ago, where Donald Trump is giving out licenses, gave a 30-day license for people to buy Russian oil, when we're supposed to be trying to economically strangle them so they can stop bombing people in Ukraine, like civilians and military infrastructures alike. Yeah, that's what we were pretty much economically choking them for. Now you're telling me we're going to go ahead and let the floodgates open for their oil because of what we started off in the Middle East. So like I said, we're walking back on all of our progress, even the progress we was making by hindering the war machine of Russia. Now, yeah, Russia. So like I said, we're walking backwards here. We're literally letting Putin sell oil again for 30 days. But Putin's in the background just rubbing his hands just like... the fools.
It is underway.
So I would highly encourage that, because it feels as though by easing these sanctions, we are directly providing the Kremlin with revenue, the revenue that will be used directly to kill Ukrainian soldiers, and an increased likelihood that Putin will be successful in his war with Ukraine. I thank you.
I mean, I'm gonna be real with you. It was already likely that he was going to be successful in his war with Ukraine outside of this. So, I mean, it is what it is.
For your time, and I yield.
All right, then let's go ahead and get to the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Gabbard, when you began your testimony, you stated that your remarks do not represent your personal beliefs. That's the first time I've heard that at a committee hearing. Why did you say that? Or is there anything in the threat assessment that you personally disagree with?
Thank you for the question, Congresswoman. The reason I've said that is twofold. Number one is, when I assumed this role as Director of National Intelligence, through the confirmation process and beyond, many members of Congress rightly said, your personal views and your politics in this role get checked at the door. And as Director of National Intelligence, my responsibility is to report the intelligence community's assessments objectively, and to make sure that they are not politicized in any way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, there are those who, for one reason or another, have tried to mischaracterize the intelligence community's assessments and saying, well, this is just a political view, or trying to misdirect from what the intelligence community is reporting. So I took the opportunity to state that from the outset, that this is the intelligence community's assessments.
Thank you. I also wanted to ask this because this week there was a high-profile resignation of Director of National Counterterrorism Center. Now, I want to be clear from the outset. I've communicated directly with President Trump my support for Operation Epic Fury, and I was very not only disappointed, but how inappropriate this letter was. And I want to read a statement that and get your personal assessment, whether you agree or disagree with that. And that's this. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed no imminent threat to the United States and that you should strike now. There was a clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie and is the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into a disastrous Iraq war. Now, I cannot say how much I disagree with that statement. Do you agree or disagree with what this letter was put out by former Director Kent?
He said a lot of things in that letter. Ultimately, we have
Now,
provided.
he said a lot of real things in that letter. What you mean, man? That was the realest letter I ever read about a war. I mean, you know what? I might just read it again, actually, because that letter was so cold. Like, what you mean? That man really stood up for the American people. So, you know what? Out of honor of Joe Kent, one, we're going to get into what he was saying, of course. And two, we're just going to go ahead and read that letter. But first, let's let it continue.
Oh, I cannot say how much I disagree with that statement. Do you agree or disagree with what this letter was put out by former Director Kent?
He said a lot of things in that letter. Ultimately, we have provided the president.
And like I said, if you haven't read the letter, I'm going to go ahead and at least read, like, I don't know, maybe the first couple paragraphs. But all right, President Trump, after much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as, let's see here, director of the National Counterterrorism Center, effective today. So yeah, guys, effective today, which was, let me see here, about a couple of days ago. All right. Anyway, I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. And it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. But we're all anti-Semitic for calling it out. Crazy. I support the values and the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, and 2024. Yeah, me too. Which you enacted in your first term. Until June of 2025, you understood that the war in the Middle East were a trap that robbed American of precious lives and our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation, which is true. In your first administration, you understood better than any modern president how to decisively apply military power without getting us drawn into never-ending wars. Well, that's what we thought. You demonstrated this by killing Soleimani and by defeating ISIS, which he did. He did do that. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media, aka Mark Levin, Lindsey Graham, and Laura Loomer, yep, those are influential. I don't like them, but they are influential. Deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your American First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to go read the rest of it. You can go ahead and look it up if you want to read the rest of it, because it's a pretty interesting read and it tells a lot. But all right, though, let's get back to Tulsi Gabbard's explanation of this so-called letter.
With the intelligence assessments, and the president is elected by the American people and makes his own decisions based on the information that's available to him.
But do you agree with, does that statement he made, blaming Israel, concern you?
Yes.
My next question is, I want to touch on the rise of terrorist attacks on the homeland. In the month of March alone, there were multiple high-profile Islamic terrorist attacks. You had Temple Israel Synagogue in Michigan. You had in Texas. You had an...
Oh, God, you have any questions, comments, jokes, or disagreements? Go ahead and super chat it in, or you can go ahead and Venmo it in for double the support. So if you send $2 to Venmo, it's worth $4, and, you know, so on and so on. But also make sure you double tap that screen and like the video, no matter where you're at. If you're on Rumble, Kick, X, well, I don't think you can like on X or Twitch, but you know what I'm talking about. Make sure to like the damn video. Appreciate the support.
ISIS-inspired attack where they threw an IED in New York City. What is your assessment as to the rise of Islamic terrorism on the homeland?
As you've pointed to, Congresswoman, this continues to be an extreme concern, not only because of the rise of these attacks, but the mechanisms which they're carried out and the challenges that the intelligence community has in being able to try to detect some of these threats and attacks in advance. I'd like to defer to the FBI director on some of this because they have been very successful in many cases over the last year in detecting them and preventing these attacks. But due to the nature of the challenge in many of these attackers not having contact with known foreign terrorist entities or individuals makes this a much more challenging threat to deal with.
And I want to turn to Director Patel. I think that's a good, important segue to get your assessment. And I also want to add another aspect of the question. We're working on a 9/11 Commission review, 25-year review. What other tools do you need to make sure that we are able to have the most robust, effective CT efforts?
Yeah,
Dropped all
thank
the
you, Congresswoman.
files?
Just real quick. So
Drop all the 9/11 files, dropped it. Well, I mean, if you're going to do that, you might as well go ahead and drop all of the JFK files as well. And then go ahead and release all of the Epstein files while you're at it. You know, if you just drop those two, I could be a little bit forgiving. Maybe if we're still in this war, no. But if we're not, you got to drop all the files for sure.
last year, we had 2,300 arrests related to foreign terrorist
I think that's fair.
organizations. We had 700 counterterrorism arrests, and the FBI had 640 counterterrorism disruptions where we stopped attacks on the homeland. Specifically in December, we stopped 4 in an 18-day span. What I need is specifically highlighted in the Norfolk attack. In Norfolk, an individual who was convicted of terrorism and sentenced based upon that conviction should have still been in prison. The Department of Justice in the first Trump administration sought a sentence of 240 months. The judge in that case downward departed and gave a variance to nearly half that sentence. If that had not occurred, that individual would still be in prison and a member of our uniformed military service would still be alive. I want to work with the legislature to figure out how to increase the sentencing for convicted terrorists and